As many of you know, I am an advocate for mental health, particularly pertaining to depression. I've done a variety of posts on it, World Suicide Prevention Day, Mental Health Awareness, World Kindness Day last week. But I feel like I have to reiterate the fact that you need to educate yourself on the subject. Unfortunately, unless you have in the past suffered from a mental illness or are currently going through it, you don't really understand. You don't know what it feels like. You can't explain to others who have never experienced it. But just because you don't understand it properly doesn't mean you can't better educate yourself, so that instead of being part of the problem, you're part of the solution. There are so many, oh, just snap out of it, or oh, just look on the bright side of things. You know, silly little statements that people who don't know make. And sadly, there are people that start believing that they need to just step out of it, especially those who are in denial about the fact that they are suffering from a mental illness. A lot of people are depressed. I mean, the statistics are, it's scary how many people actually suffer from this illness. And yes, it is an illness. It is a real illness. It is a sickness of the brain. People can't just change the way they think or feel suddenly to be better. And there are more than one type of depression. Your two main categories are your environmental and your chemical. And unfortunately, a chemical imbalance of the brain is just that. The chemicals in your brain itself are out of balance, and that makes you feel and think differently. It's not something that you can change yourself. There are people who suffer from this type of depression their entire life, and they are on medication for their entire life so that they can better function. And you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and there shouldn't be. But telling people like this that they need to just snap out of it and they need to just feel better and that depression isn't a real illness, things like that make it worse. There are people who've stopped drinking their medication and ended up killing themselves because they were told it's not a real illness. They don't need the meds. And whatever the person who's saying it, wherever they're coming from, whether it's a good or bad place, unfortunately, it makes no difference. The damage is being done daily because people just aren't educated enough about the subject. And the stigma that is still attached to it. We need to hashtag stop the stigma often. It's one of the most prevalent hashtags I use because it does need to stop. And sadly, mental illness is not becoming less in the world today. It is on the rise. It's on the increase. And the uneducated people, sadly, are compounding the problem. So if you yourself have never suffered or are not suffering at the moment, please do yourself the favor to go and do some research about it. And if you are a sufferer, or if you even think you are and you don't know, do yourself the favor. Go and do some research on it. There are so many people out there that suffer and that are even on medication for it that just don't speak about it because they get judged and they get treated differently because of their mental illness. And it's wrong. People can function properly in society if we all just take the time to understand what is going on with the person next to us instead of judging them and criticizing them and treating them differently. in this day and age, in the world we live in today, it's not necessary anymore. The stigma does not need to thrive. It shouldn't even be alive. With all the information at our fingertips, with the technology we have, we really are doing ourselves and everyone around us an injustice by not finding out, by not educating ourselves, and by not being part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And lastly, just remember to always be kind. I know it's hard. Even I battle sometimes, especially when you're having a bad day. But you never know what the smallest little gesture of kindness, the difference that could make to someone else's day, could be astronomical. So always be kind.